Hello, my name is Catherine Dager, and I am so excited to share this information with you and to lead you on a little bit of a journey just for a few minutes and to introduce myself and also some of the things that you already know that maybe you've forgotten, but I'm just going to remind you. So this isn't really teaching you anything, it's reminding you of what you already know. I prepared a little PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to share with you some of the thoughts and ideas that I know work so well with organizations all over the world. So this is 3 secrets that turn your pharmacy payroll into profit without micromanaging, babysitting, or burning yourself out. And it's by me, Catherine Dager, and I do have a master's in psychology, and I have been really at this for 33 years. I'll tell you all about that. So this is for you. If you are a business owner, a leader, a manager with even one employee who is not following your direction or who's underperforming. And this is for you if you're hungry to build a legacy so you can expand your business and just don't really know where to start. Or if you want a business that works well without you, so you can have more balance and fulfillment in your life. How does that sound? And in this master class, I'm going to show you how to get what you want from your employees without micromanaging or babysitting. And I'm going to also show you how to empower your team so they're 100% productive every day. Wouldn't that be great? And the key to creating a culture where your employees are eager to innovate and be a part of your expansion. And I'm just going to let you know, you can do all of these things that I'm going to share with you. This is not so crazy that it's something you need help doing. So does this sound like a pretty big promise? Well, I'm just going to share with you how I learned about leadership. And this is me with my little arrow, over my orange arrow. I was 11 years old when my life drastically changed. That looks like a great little picture of a nice family. And it was kind of like Pleasantville when I grew up. But what happened was that was the last family portrait we had because 3 weeks later, my mom ran off with another man. And it was shocking. We didn't know what to do. I had a baby sister that was almost 4 years old, and I was 11 at the time. And I realized kind of the fog cleared in my head, and I realized I was the oldest girl. And the most important burning desire I had was to keep the family together no matter what. Because it was really, I could see my mom wanting to take my baby sister and maybe my other sister to live with her. And I was like, nope, we're not going to break this family up. So I met with my dad and I said, look, I'm going to step up. I'm going to take on more of the responsibility. And I didn't even know how to cook. I didn't know how to grocery shop. I really didn't know how to do most of the things that grown-ups knew. I was only 11. Even grocery shopping and handling money was a big stretch for me. But I tell you what, I made it happen. I burned a lot of peas. I did a lot of 30-minute spaghetti. I mean, those things are real. Nobody died on my watch. And sometimes I'd be in the middle of the night looking at my baby sister, making sure she was still breathing, and just standing over her bed and just loving her because I felt so responsible for her life. But here's what ended up really happening. I discovered that whatever I put my mind to, I could actually do. I found an endless source of creativity. I found resourcefulness inside of myself, and it became kind of a real important part of me, like a mama bear, to keep my family together and to make sure everybody was working as a team. And it's so interesting because that's exactly what I've been doing with companies ever since. And it was so funny because I was thinking about it. My dad, who is still alive, great guy, and we were all super close. I built his legacy. His big important thing in life was to be the best dad in the world. And to this day, he still is. And so I'm into legacy creation. That's just kind of been a part of my MO since I was a kid. So here I am. I'm Catherine Dager, and I am a #1 best-selling author now. I've spent 30 plus years making hundreds of organizations worldwide profitable, productive, and proactive. I am the creator of these tools and strategies. And some of my clients call me the queen of company transformation. I think that's really fun. But the truth is, I really care about the culture in an organization, and I want to create places where people can't wait to go to work every day. And it's because I hear people really being disengaged and unhappy where they work. And we spend so much time at work. I really decided a long time ago to shift that around so people could really enjoy coming to work each day and realize that these relationships are important. They're important to maintain. So I promise you, I'm going to share with you my step-by-step proven system so you can become more effective, you can be more profitable, and have a team that is happy to follow your leadership. Wouldn't that be great? And it's not that hard. I'm going to be teaching you this system. Plus, I am going to show you later on how we can work together. And I do have a couple of gifts for you. So please stay. And this is, again, it's short and sweet, but it's going to hit some very important points that I think you may even want to take some notes because you can implement this right away. So does this sound like you? Do you have days when you've decided to be productive, get a lot done, but your team keeps interrupting you so you get nothing done? Or do you believe that you should be more successful or further along at this point in your business than your books are showing? Or do you see other people in your industry making more money than you and you're wondering, how do they do it? Also, have you ever given an employee direction and it just gets ignored, so you end up doing it yourself? And have you ever hesitated to give someone feedback because you're afraid of the repercussions? And that can get pretty ugly. And have you ever felt too overwhelmed to execute your plans because there are just so many obstacles in the way and it just stops you in the tracks? And do you want to increase your revenue, but you just don't know how to get there? Well, the real problem from what I've seen is maybe that you may lack structures and systems so that everyone is aligned toward the desired result. With these 3 secrets, you're going to have peace of mind knowing that your business is built to last and your team is accountable for specific results. Wouldn't that be great? And you'll be able to take time off doing what you enjoy and know that your business will thrive. And you'll be invigorated by the momentum you've created and you'll know how to sustain it. That is the key. And once you use all of these, you'll have a loyal fan club of customers who can't get enough of your pharmacy and service. You'll be creating a one-of-a-kind experience for your customers, becoming a legend in your industry. Also, your team will be delivering world-class service and creating repeat clientele. So here's what you need to know. You're about to learn 3 secrets that are going to give you a head start to creating your legacy. You'll be able to engage your team without overworking them or giving up on quality. So there's no sacrifice here. And you'll position yourself to stand apart from your competitors. That's when it gets really fun. And I'm going to share with you how I discovered these 3 secrets. Well, here's my wake-up call. So in 1980, I had been working in retail department stores. I had been a buyer. I had a great time being a recruiter, having executive training programs. So my next bit at 1980 was to be a regional manager of 110 stores in 6 states for general nutrition centers. And that was a huge responsibility. I was just barely into 30 years old, and I was a little bit on the overwhelmed side, but I'll tell you what, I was loving it. But after one fire would blaze in one store, I'd take care of that, and then there'd be a district manager, take care of that, and another one over here. I was running ragged. I ended up working at least 80 hours a week. I stopped counting. I barely had time to feed my cat. And I was just racing all over. And the pressure kept mounting from corporate. And I was finding the employee turnover was rampant. We didn't even have a team to play the game. So after about 6 months of trying to make everybody happy is what I was trying to do, I ended up in the hospital with kidney stones, probably super dehydrated. And that's when my body just said, stop. So this was my wake-up call. And then what I decided to do was go to my wonderful mentor. I had a great mentor named Adele Lewis, Dr. Adele Lewis. She was incredible. I met her when I was 23. I studied with her for 9 years. And she used to have Einstein over for dinner at her home in New York City. She used to hang out with the most incredible brains in New York, and she was really known for her incredible wisdom. And she ran the Bioenergetic Analysis Institute in New York, the body-mind connection. So this was in the 60s. She was so ahead of her time. And when I met her, I just felt like I had found a master, and I sat at her feet. So I went to Adele, and I said, I'm sick, in my body. I didn't even have time to heal. The phone kept ringing. And she just said, get back in touch with what it was that really caused you to take this type of responsibility. I mean, just connect back to what was your motivation. And then I realized, I thought 5,000 people were reporting to me directly and indirectly. 15 district managers, 150 store managers, sales associates, part-time, full-time, 5,000 people. And I wanted to make a really great difference in their life. And what I realized with such humility, and it was like the greatest epiphany I've had, is that what I know doesn't matter. And I was placing myself out there trying to give answers to everyone. But what I realized in a very humble moment was all that matters is what they know. What I can do is facilitate that knowledge to make sure everyone is confident. Everyone knows exactly what good looks like. And what ended up happening is I went and got a Sears typewriter. We didn't even have computers at that time. And the first place I started putting the plug in was hiring. So I taught all the district managers how to hire. And I had some recruiting experience, so I was really great at that. And then I started teaching the managers around customer service and how to build a culture based on trust. And I'll tell you what, within 5 weeks, we had amazing results. You could see it, double-digit increases in sales, increase in employee retention, well over 100%. We were keeping people like crazy. It was wonderful. And I had promotions of people on all levels, 5 weeks. And it was such an incredible experience, because that's where I got my excitement, was seeing people get promoted. And they actually sent me to the corporate headquarters, where I became the organization development director. And I stayed there until I really honed my craft. And then literally I started Profitivity, because I wanted to make sure that I could give these great gifts to many companies, not just one. So I've had Profitivity since 1985. I've worked with hundreds of organizations. Many of them were retail, but also I'm in the pharmacy industry now and loving it. Everything fits. I know exactly what we can do to create profit and also to get people together. So here's some of my clients: Old Navy Clothing Company, MasterCard, Brighton Collectibles. I created their culture from their first store, Taco Bell, the Hudson Group, and all of the airports. And I'll tell you what, I continue to learn with every client. I just finished with Magnolia Pharmacy in Texas, Magnolia, Texas. They were amazing. And they'll tell you all about how this adventure went. It was fantastic. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm just going to share with you what I've been really doing and crafting for all these years that works. It works so well. So here's the 3 secrets that separate successful business owners who enjoy more freedom and are making a bigger impact. Wouldn't that be great? And you may want to take a couple of notes so you can put this to good use right away. So I'm really going to give you quite a bit of content here. Secret number 1, create your standards. I know, you probably have them written down somewhere. But the truth is, every time I walk into a brand new organization, I look to see what are the standards there. Create standards that are going to lead your business to success. And here's why. 80% of businesses don't have standard operating procedures in writing, or ones that are current. And so employees start second guessing and not following through. And it's really difficult to get even simple things done. And that's so frustrating. And it's a waste of money. Or I see people hold back because they don't want to do it wrong. And they don't want to be browbeaten by somebody who says to them, well, we don't do it this way at this place. And it's like a brand new employee. I've seen some of them not come back after lunch because they've been beaten down non-verbally most of the morning because they get so enthusiastic. They want to do this and this and this. And it's like, oh no, don't get overly aggressive. It's going to make us all look bad. But the truth is, what are your standards? What does good look like? And how are you communicating those? And let's take a look at the antithesis. How's your life without standards? You can't hold anyone accountable if you have nothing in writing or nothing current. And right now on this planet, there is no such thing as common sense because there's no commonality that we all are aligned to. Now, that had a place at the dinner table when I grew up as a boomer. You know, it was like 6 o'clock or dark, whichever came first. We were home at the table. And there was commonality there. We had rules. We had manners. We had chores. Everybody was together. And even when I was running my little family, we maintained that dinner table. And we were there for about an hour a day learning communication skills and learning how to care for each other through all kinds of things that were going on in our lives. Do you relate to that? Well, the truth is, the last 2 generations, there's been no dinner table. I mean, the table's there, but people aren't around it. So how do you get employees to comply without rebelling, complaining, or confrontation? Because they don't understand some of the values you may have grown up with. In other words, you end up having everyone dependent on you because you're the one who knows the standards. And on a subtle level, very often I find business owners judging people because they don't do it right, not the right way, the only way, the way it should be, the way it ought to be, which of course is their way. But if you haven't written it down, how's anyone going to know? They can't read your mind. In fact, it's impossible for them to read your mind. I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. And when you have people depending on you, and that's what I did when I was with GNC, they were dependent on me. You end up babysitting, your customers suffer, and you end up being burnt out. But here's the good news. When you get this right, you'll be confident in your ability to get things done through your team. Wouldn't that be great? Your employees will enthusiastically embrace the standards and keep them top of mind. And you can exponentially grow your business. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And you will work fewer hours, I promise. And you'll create your legacy so your business outlives you. So here are your choices. It's pretty simple. You set your standards and align the team with them, and you'll 10 times the productivity and profits of your business if you've got that momentum behind you. Or if you don't get your team aligned with your standards, you'll stay in the hamster wheel and turning off your customers. What a total waste of energy, time, and money. So here's how, this is for the notes, this is how to create your standards. First of all, start with the basics. What tasks, skills, and procedures do we use every day? What does good look like? Like, get really, really specific. And what areas could be cross-trained so that people could continue to grow their skills and be more valuable to you as an asset to your company. And especially in pharmacies, we want, instead of having them all be clerks, see if we can get them to the pharmacy tech position. And then ultimately, it would be great if they wanted to move into a pharmacy position as well. But the pharmacy tech position would be a great place to grow. Also, when you're doing your standards, look for the core values that would upgrade the culture. They're so important. And what behaviors always lead to successful outcomes. For example, getting specific about, instead of just say, greet the customers, that can be interpreted 55,000 ways. You say, make eye contact, smile, and say hello within 10 seconds or 10 feet. And that's our greeting. So this is what my distinctions are that I want you to take notes on, because this is what you can do on your own to start sorting through and getting specific. There's a distinction between behaviors and notions. Behaviors are what you can hear and see. They're physical, they're real time, they're measurable, and they're specific. So when you speak of a behavior like wave your hand, make eye contact, smile, say hello, those are physical things that cannot be interpreted. You can see them, you can measure them. Either they did it or they didn't. That's behavior. Behaviors are steps or actions that will produce favorable outcomes. So we can have your team recreate steps to say, how do I make that work really well all of the time? And you know what? The wisdom exists inside your team, which is so exciting. We're going to count on them to fill in some of these wonderful ideas of specifics. Now, notions are not so good. They're concepts, and they'll always need to be interpreted by the individual. So they're just ideas. So a lot of times people say in their business, give world-class service. Well, what is that? And I might use that term, but I have it very specifically broken down into behavior. So you can see it and it's consistent every single day. So what we want you to do is document the action steps, break every notion, concept into behaviors. So how do we actually create this? In fact, it's kind of fun. I like it. For me, it's like, okay, what's our best practice? What's the best way of getting this done? What's the most efficient way? And what are the steps we do to get there? So, and then you can also start looking for who knows how to do it right, who does the best job of this, and have them be the author of that particular skill or task. And then what I love doing is engage your managers to help define the standards. Managers, pharmacists, pharmacy techs, get people engaged in defining the standards so they have a say. They're thinking about it on their own, which is wonderful. And ask, what do our patients or customers really want? How do they want to be treated? So we want to really embed that into our culture. And I'm going to say it this way, the process to me, it's so rewarding to take the time to do it. And I know that everyone in the pharmacy industry is time starved. I've seen it. But once you have this in place, it's like you are way ahead of the game. So evaluate what's working, what's not working, eliminate outdated procedures and systems. And it's really important to do that because sometimes we make up stuff that we don't really need to be doing and it's wasting time. Now, to other people, this isn't sexy, but it's important. I think it's sexy. And you have the power to make a big change all the time. So that's secret number one. Create standards. And then the second one is clearly communicate your standards. I think you're going to like this. You know, think about how are you going to deliver them? And let's take a look at reality. What do your employees do with the manual? I have seen more manuals with an inch of dust on them, or even binders. So people don't usually go back to the manual to look things up unless they have to. But in terms of everyday, day-to-day, a manual is not something that people gravitate toward. So how can you deliver your standards in a format that will engage your employees? Wouldn't that be great? And how can you track their progress? Because you want to see how far they're doing. You're going to love this. And I'm going to show you how adults learn. In fact, you already know. Answer these important questions. Does show and tell really work? Like you just say, okay, how much does that buddy really know? Go buddy up with this person and shadow them for a while. And I hope the buddy knows what to do, because we don't know. We're not watching them. We're busy with our head down doing our work. Also, how many binders and manuals are collecting dust? And why doesn't what we cover in training really stick? Because is that way, if we just cover something like people say, oh, yeah, we're going to have a store meeting. We have it 2 times a year. It's like, are you kidding me? What happens for 6 months? How much communication isn't being given to each other? I mean, come on now. That's not how grown-ups learn. And if you're just covering topics, there's nothing going on in terms of learning, none. And the other thing is, how much can a person take in at one time? So if you've got maybe a new person, how much can they really, get into their system and embed? So here's a big key, huge. I hope this is new for you. Learning and retention for adults. When we're reading, watching videos, and listening to audio, our percentage of retention is about 3%. In fact, according to UCLA, it's 3 to 10%, but it's only 10% if they're talking about sex. So it's usually about 3%. And what's really interesting is if you don't use anything that you just heard or watched or read, if you don't physically do something with it within 16 hours, it's evaporated in your memory. So it never even reaches your neural pathways. Now, here's the key. When adults, how do you learn? By doing. And how do you learn? By being awkward and making mistakes and kind of figuring things out and feeling like you don't want anybody watching you during these awkward times. But the truth is, when you teach yourself, and that's the best way for grown-ups to learn, you retain up to 97%. Because you're physically involved with your own learning. Isn't that incredible? So that's what's really important. And what we're doing is we're showing you that self-teaching is the best strategy. So if you can get every part of your operation into a self-teaching format, retention is going to go off the chart, which is fantastic. That means you're not going to be saying the same thing over and over, or answering the same questions, because they will have taught themselves, which is really brilliant. So this is how our brain works. It wants to make everything a habit. And what it really does is it's 3 trillion neural pathways that actually have grown. I'm going to give you an experience right now, just for fun. I'm going to show you how the brain works. What I want you to do is just clasp your hands and look down and notice which thumb is on top. You've been clasping your hands all your life, and this is the way you've done it. Did you even have to think about it before you did it? No. Now watch this. Unclasp your hands. Now lace them the opposite way so the other thumb ends up on top, and then hold it. What does your brain want you to do? Don't do it, but what does your brain want you to do? That's right. Go back the other way. Just hold it for a second. Couple more seconds. I'm going to torture you just a tiny bit. How strong is that? What's the brain saying? Hey, it's wrong. Turn it back. It feels really awkward. True? Okay, so that is a habit. Let go. All right, so you've been clasping your hands this way. When I had you do it an opposite way, it's really uncomfortable. And every time someone learns something new, they feel very awkward. But that's when the growing is happening. So if they're just breezing through it, they're not learning anything. If they're actually taking time, reading, digesting it, going out and trying different ways of doing it and seeing that it fits, that's where the learning really happens and the retention. So here's what the statistics about the brain. By the time we are 3 years old, I'm going to show you this too. Every time you think a thought, like clasp your hands, or every time you do a behavior, a ridge of neurons fires up in your brain, by synapses. But if you think the same thought, and the more you repeat the same behavior over and over again, that synapse and those neural pathways become like superhighways with ridges. So the more you repeat the same thought or do the same behavior, you actually create a habit. Now, what's crazy, but it's true, is according to Stanford University and the research they've done on neuroscience, by the time we're 3 years old, those habits were set. Up to 80% of our neural pathways were set by the time we're 3. So it's like how to walk. We don't have to relearn that. We know. We've fallen down, we got up, took us a year, we finally figured it out. But everything you do, the brain is trying to make it into a habit. And that's really a big part of why people resist change, because they just want to do what they're doing. In fact, according to Stanford, 95% of our day is being on autopilot, just doing what we do the way we do it. So truly, any kind of permanent change requires physical involvement, and it takes 15 to 25 weeks of reinforcement for it to actually become a habit, like the new way of doing things and replacing some of the ways that weren't working as well. Isn't that interesting? And then the truth is too, because our mind loves autopilot. The brain's job is to protect us from perceived danger, and so it throws up all kinds of signals. Like when you clasped your hands the opposite way, it took that as a risk. Now, really, was that a risk? No. But the truth is, anything that's not autopilot, the brain perceives as a risk. And how boring is that? In other words, you need someone outside to help you navigate staying out of that comfort zone. Being out there with a green growing edge where people are really alive and focused. When people are in their comfort zone too long, they turn into zombies, don't they? When people are on autopilot, you see them with their head down doing what they feel like doing, and they're just serving themselves. So when we're in a retail operation, our job is to serve others. So our job is to stay out of that comfort zone and not sink into unconsciousness, and to stay so present. So everything that we do at Profitivity is designed to gently and happily keep people out of their comfort zone, have them grow bit by bit, not just giant leaps for all mankind. But every time we're out of our comfort zone and we take a risk and we achieve it, our confidence grows, and it's self-confidence. So we want every person on your team to have their self-confidence growing all of the time. And this is another huge secret, and I don't know why people do it, but quit trying to make your employees comfortable. This is what they've chosen to do. They're self-employed. They're here, they're getting paid for the use of their body during working hours, and you want them to be serving others and not themselves. Does that make sense? And if you want to, I'm going to offer a phone call with you, and so I can certainly sort that out with you. Now I'm going to show you out of the crown jewel of Profitivity. We call it Legacy Blueprints. We have, and I'm going to show you a couple of them, but what we've done is we've created a self-teaching system. I can show you very briefly. We call them Business Legacy Blueprints. They're in a box. They're color coordinated. They're organized by all kinds of sections. So we have a section for orientation and one for pharmacy tech workflow and one for pharmacology, and we have one for loss prevention and safety. So we have all different, and service and hometown values. So we have all different legacy blueprints. They address one skill at a time. So every day the person pulls out one of the blueprints, reads it, teaches themselves a skill, practices that during the shift, and at the end of the shift, they go to a mentor and they say, watch me do this, and they get signed off on a training marker so that they are learning. And also it's great and handy for reinforcement so that you don't lose your standards and you've committed them into this beautiful system. We also, we customize every single one of them with you. So we don't sit in some office and think things up. We're out there hands-on in your operation working with you to create these. And includes almost all of the duties in all job descriptions. And it's self-teaching. It's like a treasure hunt, which is really fun. And the daily mentor sign-off ensures the standards. And the responsibility for the learning stays on the employees and not some random manager. It's easy to deploy and it's very cost effective. You can't hurt laminated stuff. So here's just, I took some pictures of some photos of them, of the legacy blueprints that I just created for a company. Here's dress and conduct standards, and you can see in the they're in the orientation deck. So there's maybe 4 or 5 orientation, how to answer the phone, how to dress, so that there's no confusion. Everybody knows what good looks like. Here's the back of that, and they read it. They decide, they're going to apply this when they're working, so they're not off the floor, they're working, and then they're preparing the show portion of it. So by the end of the shift, they go to one of the mentors, and you'll have a few of them, and they'll go to one and say, watch me do this. And it's great. There's, it's like confetti falls from the sky. It's something to cheer about because they taught themselves a skill and they feel good about it. Here's one of the blueprints on the drive-through and people that are waiting. So this is what this company came up with. And so we have these templates and we use those to make it easy for us to edit and modify this to fit your business, which is so great. I have 55 templates for pharmacies right now, and I'm heading into working with 7 more stores, and every single time I come up with more. Here's we did some tech pharmacology, so cardiovascular drugs. So we remind them and reinforce some of the training. And my favorite is the hometown values. What makes a team a great team? How about choosing a positive attitude every single day, which is really cool. So this is our self-teaching empowerment system. Employees read 1 or 2 a day when they sign in for their shift. They practice on their own to build their confidence. And when they're ready, they demonstrate their behavior to a mentor. And they're tracked on their own training marker. And no one is exempt from learning and demonstrating the SOPs, especially when we've just created them. So everybody, no matter how long they've been with you, they get to go through this process again. And it's actually a lot of fun. The other thing is, when somebody has completed all of the legacy blueprints for your business, they can become a mentor. So there's a succession built in. Isn't that cool? So here's secret number 3. Because you know now how the brain works, we're going to develop a habit. So because it's so important, we need to reinforce these standards for 15 to 25 weeks. And here's the thing that we're up against. Remember the risk that the brain didn't like having to do something differently? Well, your brain conspires against growth. It's just gonna make it miserable. So once you start to do something you've never done before, your brain will start doing everything it can to stop you. The truth is, your brain doesn't want you to grow. It wants you to play it safe and maintain status quo. But that is absolutely working against you and your business. The good news is, because of neuroplasticity, you can quickly bring about permanent change by choosing and reinforcing new thought patterns. And that's what we do. I know I told you this already. Plan 15 to 25 weeks of reinforcement for all of this to gel, and it will. It takes 15 to 25 weeks for neural pathways to be ingrained into the brain. Training is the starting point, but mentors need to be the keepers of the flame. So without reinforcement, all of your investment will fail. And we don't want that to happen. So when you go for it, woo, it's amazing. When you reinforce the standards daily, you'll be charged with energy and embark on an upward spiral. Take inspired actions, and you'll see amazing results that weren't possible before because no one was thinking outside that comfort zone. But if you default to the comfort zone, you're going to continue to see shrinking profits, disengaged employees who do the bare minimum, and customer complaints that could cost you thousands of dollars. We don't want that to happen to you. And here's the truth. And again, I told you I'm not teaching you anything you already know. If your standards aren't reinforced, your employees will get back into their comfort zone and check out on you. And this is what it looks like. Employee turnover or absenteeism, excuses, unwillingness, going through the motions, customer complaints and declining sales, serving their own social needs during working hours, texting, chatting, or going rogue, or them versus us,